right, we are going to move on. We're going to keep working on our account details page. So I'm going to relog in because I got kicked out in the time between my last video and this one. Now I'm welcomed back. Thank you. And I'm going to head over to account details. So here I can see all of my account details, and I'm going to work on the functionality for these edit buttons here in this video. Okay, so I am trying to stretch myself a little bit in this project. So normally I would create a modal here where I would click the button, a modal would appear, ask me for my new name, okay, and then I would type it in. But I think it'd be cool to try to play around with the idea of changing these into like an input field when I press the button. So this section here would disappear and an input field would appear with Callie written, and then I could kind of edit from there, all right? And same with all of these. And then when I click enter, okay, is the idea that I would want to submit, okay? So I don't know how to do all of this. I'm gonna kind of guess and see where I go and look up documentation where I hit things that I don't know. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to identify where at I'm going to add this functionality, okay? So because my edit button is within the user details row, and that's what I want to edit, that's where I'm going to add my logic, okay? So here I have my field, that's not going to change, but my text and my edit button is, okay? So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to start playing around with this, okay? So I have my icon button, all right, and I'm going to want something to happen when I click on it, okay? When I click. So I'm trying to think here. Should I iteratively do this? So maybe what I want to do is I want to, when I click on this button, I want this to turn into an input field, okay? And then this button is going to turn into like a check mark or like a submit button instead, okay? So in order to do that, I need to have a state here. So I'm going to say const update field, set update field, and then I'm going to set that equal to use state, and I'm going to start with false. I have to import use state from React, okay? Then what I want to do is I want to add an on-click event to this button, okay? And on click, I'm going to update, well, I don't want to name it that, I'm just gonna say handle click. Okay, because there's only one button on this page, so handle click is fine. So then I'm gonna go ahead and add that function, const handle click is equal to, and then I'm going to say set update field to true, okay? The reason why I'm using a state is because now I want to conditionally render certain items here based on this update field, okay? So let's start with the button, okay? So on the icon button, I'm probably going to keep it an icon button so I can add the logic here, okay? So let's go ahead and open up Chakra UI icon. All right, and then I think I'm gonna do like check icon. All right, so I'm going to do update field, okay? If update field is true, then I wanna show the check icon. Otherwise, I wanna show the edit icon. I'm gonna go ahead and import the check icon here, all right? So, if I click, it should go to the check icon. Click, check, click, check. If I click again, nothing happens because we are setting it to true every click. So what we want to set it at really is not update field, okay? So now this will allow us to toggle back and forth, okay? All right, perfect. Okay, so that's one piece of the puzzle. One piece of the puzzle is that I want to conditionally render the button. The other piece of the puzzle is I want to conditionally render this here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look up input because I want an input field instead. I'm going to copy this and then I'm going to add my condition here. So I'm also going to say update field. If update field is true, then I want to do the input field. Otherwise, I want to do my text with my value. Okay? And I don't want a placeholder, but I am going to say value is equal to value. Okay? So I hit click. Now I can go ahead and update this. And then when I'm done updating it, I would click check and it would switch it back. Okay? So that's pretty good. I'm going to add flex 1 to it to see if that helps with the display. I don't think it will. Oh, okay, that looks better. Nice. Okay, let's see if line height 32 pixels will also help. I think it's going to do the opposite and make it big. Okay, so it makes it a little bit bigger. So I'm curious if I can make it a little bit smaller and do like height 32 pixels. Oh, that looks better. Oh, that looks so much better. Perfect. Okay, but I want there to be like a little bit of gap in between those. So I think I'm going to add a gap to the whole thing. Let's see if gap 1 is enough. That looks pretty good. Let's try gap 2 though. Okay, I actually really like that. All right, so I click check, and now my field is just a field. I click edit, and now I can edit, right? But the issue is when I have it set equal to the value, so if I try to change this, I can't, okay? But so far, that looks pretty good and is kind of what I'm hoping for. So I'm going to go ahead and say that create on-click function that changes box showing data into an input field for name, email, username, and password. I'm going to check that off because we did it. Right. So now we are going to move on to the next developer task, okay? The next developer task is to create an on-press enter function that will send the new field, the field to be changed, and the user ID to the API, okay? But honestly, I forgot a task, so I'm gonna add one. So I'm gonna say create on change function that saves the new inputted data. All right. And then on here, it's not going to be on press enter anymore. I think that could be a next level thing we can look into. So I'm going to say on click check or on click press enter. Okay. So let's create our on change function that's going to change the value here, which will then allow us to actually type something in here and save it. Okay, so we are going to do const value set value. Then we're going to say use state and set it equal to the value popping in. Now it doesn't like that I'm using the same thing, so I'm going to say set value state, set value state. Okay, so originally I'm going to use, I'm going to set it equal to the value that's popped in, okay? But we want to add an onChange function, const onChange equals, okay, that is going to take the event, all right, and it's going to set value state equal to e.target.value. All right, then what we're going to do is add this on change function to the input field. Okay, so now if I delete this, it will not work. All right, so let's take a look. Oh, so we want value not equal to value. We want value equal to value state. All right, now let's try it. Oh, I can see it's already gonna work, so I can say new name here. Or I can say hello world. Okay, and then if I click. All right, now my issue is though that this, right, is being shown value. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to, when I click that check, that's the function we need to do next. We need to, when I click that check, we need to update this here, but we need to do that on the back end as well because we actually want to update the value in our database. Okay, so I can though make this equal to value state. Okay, so that way it's working on the front end, but just keep in mind that we will need to change that on the back end so it reflects, because if I refresh my profile, it's getting the data from the back end. Okay, so me doing this here is not actually too helpful to the cause. Okay, all right, so then now I can go and click my on change function. Okay, so now this is where I need to do my, I need to submit the data. Okay, so that is going to be, all right, so I'm going to change this to handle click edit. Handle click edit. So that way I can then have a function called const handle click check. All right. All right, and this one is going to be a little bit more involved. So we want to take whatever is in the value state, and we want to take whatever field we are editing, and we want to send those two things to the back end. Okay, so we want to create a function on click check. All right, which I guess we can try to match our spec here. Okay, that will send the new field value and the field to be changed and the user ID to the API. Okay, so let's go ahead and look to see if we have the user ID, because we might need to change our plans here. Profile data, we could just send the username instead. So let's go ahead and edit our plans here. Username to the API. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find myself a good Axios request. Right, this one looks good. We are posting to a route within the auth module, and we're sending the username and password. So I should be able to edit this pretty easily for my own purposes. So I have to import Axios. All right, we are going to say username is equal to data.username. All right, then we're going to also send the field, and then we're going to send value is equal to value state. All right, so it looks like then we also need to pass in the username to this function. So instead of passing in all of the data, I'm just going to pass in the username here. So username, and then I'm going to say username is string. Okay, I now need to return to my profile so that way I can add that prop to all of these. So username is equal to data.username, and then I can just copy and paste this prop here to every one. So now username should be within this component. Okay, so we are naming this route change account detail. So I'm going to change this here, and I'm going to say change account detail. All right, now you need to think through at this point whether or not this should be protected, and do we need the token? And I would think that yes, because in order to change an account detail on a user, we need to make sure that the user is who they say they are, right? So we're going to need to add a token to this field, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and go to my index.tsx page because I have a good example of getting the token and then adding it to the headers. Copy that. All right. Then I should be able to paste that in here. And then we want to say const token is equal to local storage dot get item token. All right, perfect. So then I'm going to add a dot then onto it, response. And then I'm going to console log my response. Right now I don't have any response because I don't have this route set up on the back end, but that's where I'm going to go next. Okay. So to make sure that we can do at least the portion up to the Axios request, let's go ahead and console log on the check click the token. Okay. Then we can also console log the username, field, and value. We'll just do token and username. Okay, so I'm going to click edit. I'm going to then type in Mickey Mouse instead, and then I'm going to click check, and I should see the token and the username. And I don't, which makes me realize that I did not attach the on-click check function to my check icon. Okay, I don't think that you're supposed to, when we use an icon button, we're not supposed to add an on-click directly to the icons. So we have two ways to do this. We could either add the logic here where we say update fields. Okay, if update field is true, then we want to call on-click check. Otherwise, we want to call on-click edit. And that would work. Or we could just have one function on click and then add the conditional statement within it. Since we already have the two set up, I'm just going to add the logic here. Okay, so let's refresh the page. All right, let me clear this. So we should be able to get rid of this and say Mickey Mouse and click check. And now we see our token and our username. Perfect. Okay, now when I click check though, all right, what should happen is I want to see a successful toast message, okay? And I also want this then to change, okay? So on click then, I also need to set the update field equal to not update field, okay? So now when I click check, it should turn it back to this. All right, and then this data should be correct if we can also then send it to the back end, okay? So I am going to uncomment this now, and we are going to start working on the logic on the back end. Okay, so before I cut this, okay, we don't actually want to change the, we don't know yet because we need to think through our error logic on the back end, but we want to figure out where we want to set this, okay? And because if it errors on the back end, like let's say my token's expired or something like that, then we would want to like display error toast, and we might not want to change the input back. We might want to say error try again and leave the input the way it is, okay? All right, so let's now go to the back end. All right, we're going into auth and we're going to call this route change account detail. So let's go to the auth controller. All right. And we are going to do I'm going to add this above here. We're going to do a post request, and we're calling it change account detail. And then we're going to say change account detail. And then we're going to have the body of the request be account detail DTO. And that is going to be of type account detail DTO, which doesn't exist, but it will. Okay, and then we want to do return this dot auth service dot change account detail. And then we want to pass in the account detail DTO. All right, we also want to use our auth guard on this. Perfect. So now let's go and add our account detail DTO, which we will copy from the login. Account detail DTO. Okay, we'll have a username that should not be empty. I don't know if the transform here is really necessary because I'm sending the username that's like from our database. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And then we are going to have a field, which is a string. We want it to not be empty, but because we are defining the field, that's not necessary. And then we want to define the value, like the new value that's being passed in. And because that is being input by the user, we do want to transform it. Okay? Account detail DTO. All right. Now it's yelling at us because we don't have this in auth service. So let's go ahead and create it in the auth service file. All right. So we're going to do async change account detail, and then we are going to get in account detail DTO, which is of type account detail DTO. All right, and then at this point, all I'm going to do is console.log account detail DTO. Okay. And now I'm going to look at my API, and I'm going to make sure that my auth change account detail post route was mapped correctly, and it was. So I'm hopeful that when let's refresh the page. Okay, I'm hopeful that if I go in and I change this to Mickey Mouse, and then I click check, all right, I got response back, which is nothing because we're not returning anything. All right, and then I have my username is C's Toes Cup, my field is name, and my value is Mickey Mouse. That is perfect, okay? So now though that I'm looking at it here, I need to go and look at my user entity because I have here that name is lowercase, but here I'm having it being passed in as uppercase, okay? So what I am going to do is I'm going to try to change that on the front end so we don't have to worry about it on the back end. So field is going to be equal to field dot to lowercase. All right. So now let me refresh the page, and then I'm going to try again. Check. All right, so now the field looks better coming in. Okay. Awesome. So now we need to go ahead and think through. All right, so we created the on-click check. All right. That sends the new field value, the field to be changed, and the username to the API good. We created the change account detail route. All right, and now we are working on this change account detail function. Okay, so it needs to first look up the user. Okay, so we're going to say find user with username. Okay, then we need to update the field in question on that user. And then we need to save the new user, save the users in database. Okay. And we want to then return user data. All right. So let's give this a try. All right, finding user with username, we already have a function for that. So we're gonna say const user equals await this dot user service dot find user by username, and then we're going to do account detail dot username. Okay. So then here I'm going to get rid of this console log, and instead I'm going to console log the user. Nope. I'm going to console log the user because I would like to see the user that comes back and the shape of the user before I start trying to add anything. All right, so I'm going to change this and then check. Okay, so the user that comes back is ID 39, Callie's Toast Cup, calliestoastcup@gmail.com, C's Toast Cup. Okay, it's pretty good. So now we need to update the user. Okay, so user at fields. Can I do that? I'm not sure. Is equal to account detail DTO dot value. Okay, so account dot field. Okay, so here we are trying to say that the user at the field in question, which in our example here is name, is going to be set equal now to the account detail DTO value. All right, then we're going to console log the user like we did before to make sure that it changed to Mickey Mouse. So what we can do is we can actually add the console logging of the user up here before we do that, and then after we can compare. So maybe we can do username and do user.name. So that way we can see the name change. Okay, I'm going to refresh. I'm going to change this to Mickey Mouse. And then click the check mark. All right, username was Callie's Toast Cup. Now the username is Mickey Mouse. But if you see, if I refresh the page, it goes back to Callie's Toast Cup because we didn't save the user in the database. Okay, so now we can say return await this dot user service dot create user with user. All right, and let's give that a try and see if that worked or if that erred, and then we'll take a look if it errs. All right, refresh the page. Let's do Mickey Mouse. All right, the response now is name Mickey Mouse. Perfect. So if I refresh my page, my name is Mickey Mouse. Woo, woo. All right, that worked. But if you see my avatar here still says, so like let's change this back to Callie's Toast Cup. And then we click send and see how this still says MM. It doesn't change until I refresh. So I'm gonna need to go ahead and figure out how to update my user on the front end, okay? As soon as it sends. It shouldn't be too necessary, especially because once we have the profile photo in here, but it's always good to try to make sure you understand where the data's at and like where it's working and how things are set up. Okay, so we found the user with the username. Perfect. We updated the field in question. Perfect. We saved the data in the database and returned the user data. All right, so then now that we did that, let's go ahead and check our other fields to make sure that worked. Okay, so I'm going to refresh. I'm going to change this to test@test.gmail or at test.com. All right. Oh, good thing we tested because it looks like email and then email address now is now a thing. All right, so let's go ahead and edit that, okay? So we want, and honestly, I support this change anyway because it's like hard as my screen's getting smaller, it's messing up the formatting. So I don't think we actually need to have it say email address. I think that we can just have it say email. All right. So now I should be able to do test@test.com. Check. All right, that worked and that worked. All right, C Stowe's Cup. Let's go ahead and do blah blah. All right, and my username is blah blah. All right, so now let's log out. Okay, if I use C Stowe's Cup with my password, it doesn't work because I got it wrong. So let's try blah blah with my password. And it works, okay? So let's go ahead and change this back. All right, and C Stowe's Cup. All right, refresh the page. All right, and that looks good. All right, I think I must have just timed out. Cannot read the properties of email. All right, I should have been looking at my my console for my API, see what those errors are, but I'm not sure. So we're gonna just kind of keep testing and see how things go. Seems like something's a little bit buggy now. All right, so let me bring my database up because we also want to check that this is working as we expect. Okay, and it is. It's updating my user, which is nice. Okay, but if I update my password, this is not my concern. So if I update my password and I put in a new password, well, first if I put in a new password, it's gonna just let me type as is. So we'll have to figure that out. So let's put in a new password, test1234, and I click send. Okay, if I refresh this now, you can now see that my password is not encrypted. Okay, so it's not been hashed. So we're gonna need to hash it. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So it looks like hash password, right, is just our thing up there. So we should be able to say here, right, if account detail.dto.field is equal to password, then we are going to say let's do let password. So we're going to say const plain text password equals account detail.dto.value. So that needs to be within our if statement. And then we're going to say const hashed password is equal to this dot hash password with plain text password. Okay, so then when you're going to move this down, nope. Okay, and then we are going to say, we're going to move this up. All right, so then we're going to say that this could be equal to the hashed password. Type promise any is not assignable to string. Oh, so we need to do await. Okay, otherwise we're just going to do this. And then I'm going to add some space for readability. Okay, so now we should be able to change this. Let's bring my database back up. Okay, and let's change it to test1234 again, right? But okay, let's add a 5 just in case the plain text still hits. exists. We'll save, and then let's refresh, and it's now hashed. Okay, let's log out, and we should be able to sign back in with cstoscut test 1 2 3 4 5. Oops, test 1 2 3 4 5, and it works. All right, so then we need to go ahead and in our user details row, we want to edit this input a little bit. So we're going to say type equals, okay, field is equal to password. Okay, if the field is equal to password, then the type is password, or the type is equal to text. All right, so now when I go in, I should be able to do whatever like that. Okay, so now let me try 1 2 3 4. All right, but then it comes back in plain text. So we want to not set the value equal. Okay, so on change set value state. Okay, so we're going to do if field is not equal to password, we'll set that. But we're sending it here, so we do want it to save. So we want to change it here actually. So we want to change it here. So we're going to say field is equal to password. Okay. Then the text is always going to be, okay, or value state. Looks like, let me go to profile and copy this amount. Okay, so now I can change this. I can go through and do new dash password is what I'm typing, and send, and then yeah, perfect. That looks a lot better. Okay, now let's go up, make sure that this is hashed. Good, and you could see that it changed. Okay, so let's go ahead and do changing the email test@test.com. Send. All right, that looks good. All right, cool. That's pretty good. All right, so we want though to validate as well on the front end that this is an email. As you can see, if I just type in test, that it will then send and change my email to test. And I don't want that because I want to be able to email my users, okay? So we are going to go ahead and add some validation if we edited the text, the email field. All right, so let's do that before we move on to anything else. All right. So I'm going to go to my sign up page, which is where we originally looked into email. And I'm going to export this invalid email function. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move into my user detail row again. All right. And I want to, on click check, I want to figure out if my, so I'm going to say const invalid email is equal to is invalid email. And then I'm going to put in value state. Okay, I'm going to do this if field is equal to email. Then I'm going to check if the field is an invalid email, okay? Then I'm going to console.log invalid email and whether or not it is, okay? So let's go ahead and try that. Let's open up my console log too though, so that way we can see what's going on. All right, so I didn't change it all, but invalid email true. Let's add an at, invalid email true. Let's add in that, still invalid. Now let's add that, false. Now we have a valid email. Okay, so what we're saying here is if it's an invalid email, okay, then we're going to show an error toast here, okay? So we are going to say if invalid email, we're going to, let's go get ourselves a toast. This one looks fine. And then we are going to do const toast is equal to use toast. Let's import it from our Chakra UI. So if the field is email and it's an invalid email, then we are going to say, please enter a valid email. Okay, and then we are going to return. All right, otherwise, we'll keep on keeping on, okay? All right, let's give it a try. Refresh my page. Okay, so I'm gonna just get rid of that part, and I'm gonna click send. Error, please enter a valid email. Okay, so then I'm going to try test at, enter valid email, test at test. Try again. Nope. Test at test.com. And now it works. Awesome. Okay, so then we can go ahead and add our toast here. So then this is going to be we have updated your account details. All right, so let's try that. Mickey Mouse, check. We have updated your account details. Perfect. All right, let's change it back to Callie Stoves Cup. We have updated your account details. Nice. All right, so now if I leave this blank here like this, it's gonna error. And the reason why it errors there is because on the controller, we said that the value cannot be empty, okay? So if we don't want it to error here, we can do two things. We can go ahead and add more information here, right? So if the field is equal to email, then we could say otherwise if value state is equal to an empty string, then we are going to do a toast and return. Please enter a value. Okay, so let's try this here. So if I get rid of this and then I click check, then it's not even going to go to the back end because it's going to say please enter a valid value. So then I can enter my valid value and check. okay? We do want to have a catch block, but I'm not going to add it right this second because I want to update my user data here. And we are going to go ahead and do that in the next video, okay? So we're going to check that we changed the account detail function and it successfully changes and returns the data on the updated user, okay? So in our next video, we will go ahead and we will set the name, username, email, or password on the updated response, and we will try to make sure our avatar gets changed as well. All right, see you in the next one.